As we run through Genesis chapter 1, we find the idea of a pre-Adam race completely out of the question. Here's Genesis 1, 3-5. The day equals age theory refuted. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Genesis 1, 3-5. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning, the first day. Now, point A, successive days in Hebrew with an ordinal adjective and an evening and a morning equals solar 24-hour days. Then and now. If that's what it means, and the English is translated that way because an evening and a morning, what kind of an evening and a morning of a day that is 4 billion years old could you have? It's just not an understandable reading thing that you can say, okay, here's more particulars on these 6 creation days so we can get the idea. But there's nothing within the context of Genesis chapter 1 that even comes close to anything other than a 24-hour day. So in spite of popular opinion, the word day, the Hebrew yom, in transliterated English letters, cannot be taken here as age or some other long period of time. The day equals yom in the Hebrew Old Testament always means a literal 24-hour day when accompanied with an ordinal adjective, first, second, and so on. And always means a literal 24-hour day when it contains an evening and a morning. James Stambaugh, in his article, Days of Creation, the Semantic Approach, page 4-5, and just click on this, if it's still there. Yom and numbers. The word yom, either single or plural, is used with a number 359 times outside of Genesis chapter 1. There are 4 prominent ways in which yom could be combined with a number to bring forth a certain significance. First, when the plural noun form is used with a cardinal adjective, 1, 2, 3, it denotes a specific duration of time. Exceptions which contain a singular form of yom do occur, but are infrequent. This construction occurs 189 times. An example of this can be seen in Genesis 30:36. Then he put a 3-day journey between himself and Jacob. The second uses the prepositions on or for, Hebrew ba or le, to show that an action is to take place on a specific yom. The number used in this construction is generally an ordinal, first, second, third, and so on, with yom in the singular, and occurs 162 times. This can be illustrated by Exodus 24:16. For 6 days the glory covered the mountain, and on the 7th day the Lord called to Moses from within the cloud. Were these million-year days? Where the Israelites are millions of years in aging? Although the construction in Genesis 1 does not precisely fit this pattern, it does appear that the phrase, "and it was evening and it was morning," functions in a manner similar to the preposition, that is, on the 10th day, the X day, comprised of an evening and a morning, bringing out the semantic significance of a solar day. De Vries alludes to the same kind of function. Quote, "After all, all has been said, the fact that surprises us the most is that bayam, hahu, is used as often as it is in an epitome, i.e. a summarizing of characterization concerning a particular day in which Israel's God was seen, in some way seen, to be active in crucial confrontation with his people." Although there is no hint of a confrontation in Genesis 1, it should be noted that way, W-A-Y-E, phrases, translated "and it was," function to summarize the activities of the previous yom. So it seems reasonable to place the concluding phrases in Genesis 1 in this category. The last two types are few in number, but use prepositions to signify a certain yom as a starting point or terminal point of an action, which occurs a total of 7 times. Here too the word yom is singular and is associated with an ordinal adjective. An example of the starting point is in Ezra 3:6. On the first day of the 7th month, got to be a 24-hour day there, they began to offer burnt offerings to the Lord. The terminal point is seen in Leviticus 19:6. Anything left over until the 3rd day must be burned up. Terence Fretheim observes, when the word day is used with a specific number, it always has a reference to a normal day. Now, there is another point which should be brought out when discussing the syntagmatic relationships of yom and numbers as they are used in a series. Freitham observes that the use of yom is a numbered series, such as is found in Genesis 1, Numbers 7 and 29, always has reference to a normal day. So, as Freitham suggests, when the interpreter uses the word yom, used with a number occurring several times in succession, in a specific context, this construction serves to denote a solar day. But this also is in keeping with the use of numbers in human languages, for numbers point to things which can be properly enumerated, but not something abstract, but something that is concrete. This can be seen in some of the things which the Hebrew language enumerated: people, places, objects relating to the tabernacle, rings, candlesticks, curtains, parts of the human body, building materials, and so on. It would seem that the Hebrew language uses numbers to modify those things which are well known by human experience. Context, 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 right? Newman admits the view that yom in Genesis 1 signifying a normal day has the advantage that no clear counter-example of yom with an ordinal adjective can be cited with yom meaning a long period of time. Nothing. So when the word yom is combined with a number, it would appear that it is meant to communicate a 24-hour day. That completely throws out some previous period of time, like evolution or the angelic world destroying the earth, and then thousands of years or millions of years later, God says, I'm going to recreate the earth and fix it up. So too, yom in other words. Stambaugh says, there are other words which are often syntagmatically related with yom: morning, evening, night, light, darkness. These words, along with the use of numbers, will aid in establishing a particular pattern of use. This is in turn will aid in an accurate interpretation of yom in Genesis 1. Again, no reason to make it more than 24-hour day. The two words meaning evening, morning and evening are combined with yom 19 times each outside of Genesis 1. 3 times these words share the same reference, Numbers 9:15, Deuteronomy 6:4, Daniel, and so on. And with each occurrence, a 24-hour day is signified. This is true no matter what the literary genre or context might be. It should be further observed, that when morning and evening occur together with yom, this happens 38 times. Outside of Genesis 1, 25, and 38 occur in historical narrative, but always, without exception, designates a literal solar day. So any combination of the words morning, evening, and yom use their extra linguistic referential value to its fullest extent, pointing to the length of time which is normally associated with these words, 24-hour day. Sabo says that yom is the fundamental word or the division of time according to the fixed natural alteration of day and night on which are based all the other units of time as well as the calendar. So you can't have a mixture of problems there either. The word night is similarly associated with yom. These words are combined 53 times in the Old Testament outside of Genesis 1. The majority's 26 times appear in the historical sections, and the remainder, 16, are in the poetic sections and 11 in the prophetic. The meaning communicated by these combinations is also a solar day. Here, too, the extra linguistic factor, a literal cycle of light followed by a cycle of night, day and night, points to a reality outside of the word itself. It is thought that this use of yom as the opposite of night represents its semantic core. Something similarly or slightly different is encountered when one examines the use of the words light and darkness with Yom. Light appears with Yom 15 times outside of Genesis 1, and in most of the cases, sorry about that glitch, and in most of the cases, it refers to the cycle of time with 3 observable exceptions, Isaiah 5:30, Amos 5:18 and 20. The context makes it clear that the figurative language used in these verses refers to some future time when God will demonstrate his power to man. Darkness is used in conjunction with Yom 11 times beyond Genesis 1, and most of the 7 of them are figurative. These references are the Ecclesiastes, Isaiah, Joel, Amos, and so on. The Ecclesiastes passage uses darkness as a time of trouble. The prophetic passages use eschatological language to denote some future time. It must also be noted that there are very few uses of light or darkness with Yom in the historical sections. Light has 3 and darkness has 1. The majority occur in the prophetic genre, where often these words have a symbolic meaning of blessing or judgment. However, when these words are used in historical narrative, they employ their referential value, referring to that which is known by human experience, i.e. a 24-hour solar day. So the day of the Lord, not a 24-hour day. But the context tells you that. Plural Yom never refers to more than thousands of years. Stambaugh. It appears that Yom was part of a variety of formulae, some of which could denote a long time. The plural use of Yom is the communicator of long time. This does not contradict the previous sections because in the illustrations that follow, Yom stands in a syntagmatic relationship that is different from the ones already discussed. The singular use tends to denote a short time. Once this is examined, the interpreter should be able to define contexts in which Yom would clearly communicate longer lengths of time. Context, context, context. Genesis 1 can't be anything but a literal 24-hour day with an evening and a morning. Any one of these days, the day of the Lord, right? It doesn't say the evening day of the Lord and the afternoon day of the Lord and the morning day of the Lord. This is the day of the Lord, which is more than a 24-hour day. It would appear that from the historical genre used in the Old Testament, the Yom in the plural tends to be part of a formula communicating a specific length of time. Gershon Bryn observes that Yom is used for naming eras in biblical times. This kind of formula has a personal name or title attached to the era. Examples of this can be seen in Genesis 5 and 10. Days of X, name of patriarch. The days of Abraham. The names within the genealogies can be used to designate the era in which that person lived. This is also frequently observed in the book of Judges, where we read of the days of X, or name of king or judge, and the author states how long it lasted. This formula can also be found in the prophetic genre, following the same pattern, with one observable exception. Micah 7:5 is the exception where instead of a name, this phrase is used the days when you came out of Egypt. See, the reference points to the future when God will show his power to the Gentile nations, so the reference to the days of signifies the period of the Exodus from Egypt. The use of Yom in the plural signifies a set length of time, and the syntagmatic relationships within the context determines how long it is. There are occurrences of Yom in the plural that appear to cover a period of thousands of years by using 2 Hebrew words for a great length of time. They are of old. See? So we have context. Hebrew, kedem, and everlasting, olam. Isaiah 51:9 illustrates the first word as it says, awake as in the days gone by, as in the generations of old. The context is a metaphorical reference to God's work of creation, and this is in the same kind of work which will be undertaken for his people. The same words also appear in Jeremiah, Micah, and Psalms to illustrate that humans had inhabited the earth for a long time, by then a period of some 3,000 years, according to Genesis 5 and 10. The second Hebrew word is often used as eternal. It too designates a long period of time when combined with the plural Yom. These can be observed in Isaiah 63 and Amos 9. The Isaiah passage refers to the time of Moses. Then his people recalled the days of old, the days of Moses and his people. See, the prophet Amos is clear, points back to the days of David In that day I will raise up a fallen booth of David